Well, thanks, Marcus, for presenting today. So, yeah, as you said, the idea of the Coffee and Talks, it's good, just short presentations and some discussion for the last 15-20 minutes. They seem to work well, ongoing since we came back from September. So, yeah, anyone can get in touch for some dates I have still available. To send out an email again this afternoon anyway. Just as a reminder, if anyone wants to lock in a date, just let me know. So today we have Marcus, and Marcus is presenting today from the BIM Summit, Data Governance and Digital Construction. So I can't join today, but Marcus is going to go solo.
Yeah. Thanks, Carol, and thanks for the reminder what the Coffee and Talks are about. So they are about to present ideas, ongoing research, to catch up with research discussion, and of course also the coffee in parallel to the discussion. That's the aspect of the Coffee and Talks. And what I thought basically for today, just a little bit of a presentation which I did, and so I participated in the presentation. I contributed to the presentation as well at the BIM Summit, so the Building Information Modeling or Management Summit, which was held a couple of weeks ago in the RDS in Dublin. Big event, and we gave a presentation and participated in a panel around data governance in the context of building information, modeling management, digital construction. And I thought I'd just share a few slides from that presentation, and then hopefully that leads to some discussion around data governance. I know data governance is a big topic. We also have the Empower project on data governance. So it's really big. I think a lot of industry experts have interest in that topic. So I thought this might be a good way for the Coffee and Talk. As I said, together with Zoe, we presented that, and my name is Marcus Helfert. I'm the director of the Innovation Value Institute at Maynooth University. So the entire context is, so Zoe is leading a research cluster. So in IVI, we have these different research clusters on different topics, different sectors. One of it is construction, building, management or modeling. And one of the key challenges what we identified within that research cluster is information management, data governance. And where we see that with data, if data is well managed, if it's shared between the different actors within the digital construction area, can have so many benefits. So, and that's that diagram what it tries to illustrate, that at the moment, from design, from the architecture, construction, so the building itself, to the operations, facility management of buildings, seem to be quite isolated, quite siloed. So every kind of aspect of that life cycle of a building seems to focus on their own part. And if we could share, and if we could enable the data sharing between that, there are benefits of, for example, design can be more sustainable oriented when we know about how it's actually operated on the end. Also, the operation can be, of course, much more efficient, for example, for energy consumption, if we know what the building actually is and how we can structure that, how we can model that and represent that. So that's all about what we have in the digital construction cluster at IVI, about information, data, thinking about how we can share this, how we can represent that. So there's a lot of digital twin discussion. So how can we represent a physical building in the digital world, because that offers so many opportunities. But we identified with the industry partners, and we have a group of industry partners and collaborators contributing to the digital construction cluster around. It's about that digital transformation, how to use digital technology in it, and how to use data governance, how to operate, what are the best practices on data governance. So what is actually good looks like on data governance, how to manage that, the data around this. That seems to be really at least some key challenges, which we hopefully also can contribute with guidance on how to manage that data around this. And that's significant because the market on building information modeling management seems to be really growing, like as a figure of over 20% increase. And also, if I think about in Ireland, the housing shortage, that the difficulty on this and the costs related to this, and probably also with the inflation, I think if we can contribute to make that a little bit more efficient, effective with digitalization, I think we can contribute a significant part on this, and it fits very well. So this is where the digital research cluster fits into this. And that's where then I, with the team on data governance, looked at this, and when we talked with people on the digital research cluster, I said, that seems to me really a data governance problem. Like data sharing, we talk usually in data governance, we talk about ownership of data, we talk about how to link data together, what are the technologies on this, and that's where data governance came into the play on it. And I just pictured this because there's so much movement in Europe on with the new Data Governance Act regulations, but also the shift on actually ownership and who owns and who should actually control the data. So it's a lot of even giving, for example, the end users the power, empowering end users on data and data ownership. Consent is important, but also creating bigger data pools, data spaces. For example, if you think about construction, building data, we could put that together, helping to look at energy efficiencies, but also other effects on mobility, on designing cities in a better way. So I think there's a lot of opportunities in that move with the European Data Governance Act, where we look at data sharing, data spaces, organizing that in a better way. And just also figures on this, on the data economy, like 300 billion, like in 2018, 900, 800 billion, somewhere in the 20s, 25, around this. Even if they're just estimation, it's huge. And I think this is significant what's currently ongoing in Europe on data governance, data spaces, and part of this is, of course, the digital construction sector. At the same time, there's a lot also from the consulting companies, so usually the Gartner reports identifying technology trends, where something significant has changed in how to organize data and how to govern data. So data management is there for a long time, but it became more flexible. We can, of course, use also smarter, more intelligent technologies, artificial intelligence, scalable, flexible, and also I think that move to compliance, responsibility, trustworthy, when the environment, the data environment becomes more complex, trustworthiness, responsible, become an important element within that. So that's also one of the first trends what Gartner identified. I think that was for 2019 or 2021 on this. So, and I think this is a really important consideration for any organization, but also in that complex construction environment. Also, more composable architectures, analytics, more open. So that fits very well into the data sharing. So when you think about in the construction industry, many stakeholders, often a structure of more like actually bringing many smaller companies together. And so we need these flexible, open architecture to really bring that together, to understand complex buildings, complex projects on end, and how to connect all of these data sets, data points within that complex construction environment. And then the third trend, and that's where I'm really particularly interested in it, is creating data fabric and looking at kind of how we manage an organization or a project or a value chain, like from design, building, and operation, to monitoring this with data and looking at how we organize data and how we manage the data in a more automated way. So that automation is a really particular aspect for my research, where I try to use technologies, for example, process mining, to automate, to reduce that manual labor, which is still surprising in data management. A lot of tasks are time-consuming, efforts, ad hoc. So to systemize that, to automate that, to make it more like a process, a seamless process, and reduce the time, for example, for integration, somewhere significant, and Gardner mentioned 30%, but I think there's a huge opportunity here to make data governance more seamless, more automated, less time-consuming. In overall, I think for data management, we need to have more flexibility, speed, governance, models to do that, practices, knowing what good looks like, to even know, so kind of on a scale from 1 to 5, what is poor or limited data governance, what is good, and how to get there. And that's where we are working at the moment in the Innovation Value Institute, where we use our expertise with maturity models, with also capabilities, but applying that particular in that data governance aspects, and trying to link, for example, data management strategies, the skills, cultural, people aspects, processes, compliance together, and describing how such a maturity model, how good looks like, and how to get there, how to improve capabilities within an organization on data management and data governance. And I deliberately use both words because data management is there for a number of years, and data governance has a particular aspect on actually governing and looking on more like responsibilities, ownership of data, as well fitting into the governance structure of an organization. But that's current work. And what I have on the top on that diagram is some work which I did with a colleague together a few years ago, where we looked from a data quality perspective on, and where we constantly, continuously improve the data quality of an organization. So we basically looked at how to improve processes, how to improve upskill people, how to raise awareness. And that's basically Tony O'Brien worked with me on this. He looked at measuring the data quality over time. And it, first of all, you probably all see on that diagram, it improved, it got better, but also the variation of the process increased. So we basically became more systematic in the approach of data quality management. And that's what we want to bring to data governance, that data governance is not an ad hoc way of looking after data. It actually becomes a practice. It becomes something far more systematic, far more founded. So we could say it could even be kind of a standard, actually, how to do good data governance. And that links to the big project what we leading in Maynooth University, together with 4 centers, with 4 SFI centers, Liro, Future Neuro, Insight, and Adapt, and supported, co-funded by Science Foundation Ireland. And I think this is an exciting opportunity. So first of all, the scale, I put a little bit of figures there, the number of researchers involved with these 4 large centers in Ireland. So we have expertise in technical, in ethical, in standards, in data value, data ecosystem, and bringing all of this together, the collaboration, and also we collaborate with industry on this, where we work on data markets, on regulation, regulatory sandboxes. Privacy is, of course, an important aspect, consent management, and the technology to preserve privacy, but also automating consent and withdrawal of consent is, for example, an important aspect that we are researching. Standards and how to link that into the current standardization groups. For example, there's AI, artificial intelligence, but also IT governance, ethics and people-centric aspects. So what should be considered far more than just regulations. It's also, so what are good practices, and we're linking not only with industry and the large research community in Ireland with the 4 centers, but also trying to liaise with policymakers to really get the mix between, on the one side, the possibilities, what we can do with technologies to establish good data governance practices, and on the other side, that it fits into the regulatory environment to really balance this, that it works for everyone. So on the one side, we can preserve privacy, we can share data, we have also, of course, commercial economic benefits, but on the end, if we bring that all together in such a way of best data governance practices, I think everyone can benefit. And that led then in the BIM Summit to some discussions around what are data governance challenges, and with all of these models. And it seemed to me there's still a lot of work required on understanding the semantic between these models, but also the evolving of these models, data sharing, data ownership, who benefits from the building data, sustainability seem to be an important, and energy consumption, an important aspect on it. So I think there are lots of opportunities, but what I took from the panel, there are still a lot of question marks on building information, sharing, so yeah, I think we can contribute with the data governance work on this. But yeah, so it's an exciting opportunity, I think. So I thought for the coffee and talk for these few minutes for our presentation, I just shared a little bit what we presented there. So the panel was, I think, like more than an hour, 1.5 hours. So of course it was far more than what I could capture in 10 minutes, but maybe we can use the next 10 minutes also to discuss a little bit about data governance, digital construction, that building information modeling and management. So I stopped because otherwise I use all the 20 minutes. And of course, I invite to comments, points, aspects, suggestions, or just even ideas. Like, it's really like a coffee talk. So I think I need to take a sip of the coffee now.
Thanks a lot, Marcus, and hi everyone, and apologies for being late, but I didn't know that there was a talk this week. Apologies for this, Marcus. So I missed pretty much all your talk. Apologies, but I suppose for me the natural question is, how can we get involved into this program?
Mm-hmm. Now, it's a very good question, and basically also with all the different aspects. So basically we have just some thematic areas listed there. So, but it's basically also on the technical side. I know you're looking at machine learning, evolvable algorithms, and I think there's a lot of opportunities there to apply the technology to data governance aspects. For example, when we look in the construction industry from architect or even like when we simulate maybe buildings and optimizing them. So I think there's lots of opportunities to apply the technology to this. And I think that's also why we have these coffee and talks, to see collaboration opportunities, to even know what expertise areas we have. And then when Denise Manton talks also to the wider group within Empower and all this, then we basically all know kind of where are the opportunities where we can link people together and discuss around this. So that's kind of, I think that there's not a kind of a particular project now which I can, but I think this is kind of really the collaboration, and that where the opportunities lies. So yeah, and I maybe should have introduced Denise as well as executive director from Empower. So, but I see her on the call here.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot, Marcus. Hi, Denise.
Hi, Edgar. I think one of the other things that we have been gathering as well is kind of bios and the expertise of the researchers. So, and Edgar, I can link you in with Leanne Callum, who's also involved in Empower. She's the program manager there with us as well. So that might be another just way of kind of getting you involved, and for us as well to have understanding. I know we've spoken before and previously on other projects and that, so I would have a pretty good idea of your expertise, but I think for Leanne as well, it would be good for her to be in the know. So I'll link you in afterwards there.
Yeah, that would be great. Thanks a lot, Denise.
And if they're not exactly, Marco, I just wanted to.
Yes, no, Marcus, thank you very much. And a question about data governance. And I know, of course, data governance has some fundamental aspects that can be applied to any field, any different domain. You know, I'm interested in digital health, and but of course, digital construction, as you were talking, and other fields. So that do you think it's okay? What we should look more at the common principle, or there are also specific aspects when we look at the data governance that are kind of different when we look at the specific domains, or we should really focus more on the global data governance theme?
Yeah, a very good question, and that's also how the slides were constructed. So I think we need to do both. So on the one side, we need to do something very specific, for example, in the digital construction industry, to allow that sharing between the different participants, design, architects, building, and then operation. So, and there are very specific challenges, for example, when we use the BIM as a standard, basically, or these attributes within it, so and mapping them. So that's very, very specific to construction industry. And Zoe, I think, is an expert now in the building, modeling, and all this, so really specific about the construction. But at the same time, and I think this is where the discussion what we have internally in IVI between the different research clusters are certain common aspects on it. And that's where that slide, for example, with the European Data Governance Act, there are certain things which changing actually. For example, the empowering of users, in your case, the empowering of patients or citizens, users, is very similar. It's really so allowing users to or people to understand consent and understand data sharing, because they create the data. That's where the ownership should be. And to me, one of the aspects, and I see Rehan on the call as well, where Rehan and Gültekin, we talked about fair data sharing principles. I think this is also an important one, which probably applies to all data-rich environments now. So someone actually creates, or some organization or someone creates the data, and maybe some other organizations gets huge benefits from combining the data. And we need to think about what is the mechanism to share that data value in a fair way, and to incentivize this. And the same, Rehan Gültekin, when we have the digital retail cluster, I think that's one of the key aspects on it. So what do we do with all of that data? But also, where is the value created, what is valuable, and how do we use that value in a fair way?
Yes, exactly, Marcus. So like we have this kind of some aspect of data markets, but they are very unregulated, not fair, like so where some companies sell data, but it all seems very predatory, like basically using data without consent and so on, and then they sell it on. And we have examples of Facebook and like those kind of companies. So basically what we are saying is sharing data is not bad. Getting value out of data is not bad, but you have to do it in a way, as you said, fair, which is fair, and the user knows where the data is going and they are compensating for it. That if they're sharing the data, that intrinsic value in the data should then be monetized in that way, that the user, if they are sharing the data and somebody is making use of it, they should be compensated.
Yeah, and in that sense, it fits very well into this. So organizing or manage data in a very business sense. So on the one side, there is data value. value is shared, but also, and that's kind of one of the topic, that's a topic kind of automating that data management to make it also efficient and effective. And we need to find ways to do that. And suddenly we look at data management not just as a burden we need to do, it becomes a really valuable task as well to create value, share value, and manage the data sharing environment as a business, as a very active way. And I think we need the kind of insights, more like knowing about how good looks like, what are best or good data governance practices. And that's another thing where we can share between the clusters. So I think because data is probably a common element in all of the clusters, at least the ones we have in IVI. And I think we need to think about what are the general best practices which we can apply to, for example, also the agricultural industry, health, retail. So in all of these different research clusters, fintech, for example, is also a big one. And I think we can learn a lot from between the clusters as well.
Yeah, in the retail context, for example, there's the notion of first party data. So there are studies, they prove that customers are actually willing to share the data as long as they get some value, right? So this concept is already embedded in retailers' business models. So this concept can be transferred to the BIM context, for example, and how it can be transferred. So I totally agree. There's a commonality because data is driving everything and changing everything now. Just needs to be organized.
Yeah, definitely agree. And I think there's so many opportunities when I think about these best practices, data governance practices, and really looking at how good looks like, what are the key elements on valuation of data, standards, technology, which technologies we can apply, machine learning, Edgar, we mentioned that. So I think there's really a lot with that interdisciplinary mix that we can help organizations to better manage data. And I just looked a little bit on the time, and usually I think we have 1 or 2 minutes left to mention the next and the kind of the overview in IVI. So I know we have a lot of activities, and we have the weekly coffee and talks, and now I hand over probably to Carol for the other aspects in IVI and outreach. We can't hear you, Carol.
Thanks, Marcus. Thanks, Marcus. That was really good. And thanks everyone for joining. Yes, it was Marcus mentioned about the coffee and talk. So please do get in touch.
Right. Thanks everyone for joining. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.